All right, we've talked a lot about the Pacific Northwest tonight. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little tired of the rain. I think we should take a little vacation, somewhere a little tropical, maybe with some palm trees. I'll cut to the chase. I'm talking about Hawaii. The cool thing is, that's where the Seattle Aquarium studies coral reefs. I got really lucky with this project. I've been scuba diving in West Hawaii and photographing the reefs there since I was 13, and it's where I've seen the most beautiful reefs of my life. Unfortunately, it's also where I've watched coral decline firsthand and felt the grief of that ecosystem disappearing. West Hawaii is a hotspot for biodiversity because of its coral. It has endemic species that only live there, and it's pretty isolated from other coastlines. This makes the area both really beautiful and really vulnerable to ecosystem changes. Species like the slow coral decline faster and bounce back slower. Globally, we know coral cover is decreasing due to factors like sedimentation, overfishing, temperature increases, tourism, and nutrient runoff. But there's not a lot of concrete information about how much coral is decreasing in West Hawaii or how different factors can influence that. I wanted to use the Seattle Aquarium's library of diver-operated video to review how the factors of marine heat waves and urchin density can influence coral in Hawaii, and what that can tell us about restoration. I'll mainly focus on urchins here, but if you're curious about heat waves, come see my poster in the lobby after this. I wanted to see how coral is decreasing, but also how we can fix it. In pink here, you'll see the 8 sites we use for our research. In green, you'll see the existing non-aquarium restoration sites. Our sites are really close to those, so our data is really accurate for making restoration more effective. Let's take a step back though. Starting in 2009, the Seattle Aquarium scientific divers went to Hawaii every February to collect videos of fish. In 2020, they realized they had these really unique coral videos, so they added a downward-facing camera to get some more specific information. I used these videos to collect my data. I took image stills and uploaded them to CoralNet, a software that adds in random points. My job was to figure out what species, live or dead, was under each point. I did this for 37,000 data points, and that is not an exaggeration. Once all my data was uploaded into a giant spreadsheet, I spent quite a bit of time learning to code, to analyze, and visualize it. I also helped the aquarium out with some scientific writing, and I also did a pretty thorough literature review in order to look a little bit deeper into some restoration projects. Let's take a look at those results. I reviewed the correlations between urchin density and live coral cover to see how they might interact. On the graph behind me, you'll see that coral cover was slightly higher in areas with more urchins. This varied a little bit by species, but it was definitely a trend. Each point in this graph represents one site-year combination. I reviewed 8 sites over 4 years to get as much data as possible. If you know graphs, you'll notice the correlation here isn't particularly strong, but it is distinctly positive, and that's what was interesting to me. Here's why. At the moment, the only published literature on this topic in West Hawaii says that urchins have a distinctly negative impact on coral cover. So our graph should look a little more like this, coral cover decreasing as the number of urchins increase. But it doesn't. So what's happening here? Urchins are herbivores that mainly eat algae. This algae can smother coral if it overgrows, so the urchins almost always benefit the coral, a balanced ecosystem of all 3 components. But marine heat waves can destroy urchin populations and lead to algae domination. But in some areas of high tourism and erosion, the urchins will overpopulate. They'll consume all the algae and will start to erode into coral for protection from waves and predators. That of the study we talked about caught one very specific location at this one rare point in time. Here's my concern. If restoration groups are relying entirely on one study with a misguided view of urchin coral dynamics, their next logical step might be to remove urchins, which might kill the very little coral we have left, which you can see circled here. Coral restoration in West Hawaii is unique because the shape of the island creates steep drop-offs, meaning coral has to be grown off-site for transplants. I found that restoration needs funding and policy support, up-to-date research information, and to be culturally informed by Native Hawaiians. Let's review some of those findings. Urchins have slight positive impacts on coral, despite what the recent research says. Marine heat waves significantly harm coral and are increasing in frequency and intensity. Plus, restoration is in dire need of new data. To address that last point, I'm actually still working on part of my capstone. I'll be publishing 2 papers with the aquarium. The first is to update the general knowledge about heat wave and coral relationships, and the second is actually publishing my own research on urchin coral dynamics in order to challenge that current literature. I recommend increasing collaboration between researchers, restoration groups, civilians, and Native Hawaiians in order to expand and review ecosystem research. Until this research is completed, urchin populations in most areas of West Hawaii should not be altered. I want to thank the Seattle Aquarium for letting me research the reefs I've been diving at since I was a kid. This project has been a dream come true. And thank you so much to Amy, Mar, my friends, family, and partner for listening to me talk about coral for the last 10 months. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to end anytime soon. Thank you so much. You want to answer some questions? All right, I got one back there.
A quick question, how did the system be changed to allow more everyday people to become more involved in this effort?
Great question. So for anyone who didn't hear, the question was, how can we change the system to make sure that everyday people can be involved in this effort? So the research that we completed, all of those videos were taken by trained scientific divers. But people go out every day and take videos of the coral with their GoPros or whatever underwater cameras they have. I think it would be really great to have some sort of central website or app or something like that where people can go in, take their own geotagged GoPro videos and upload them so scientists can review them, giving us more data for time and more data for space, because we only go every February and do these distinct sites. Right.
Is there any reach outside of Hawaii that have other ocean dynamics research, and do they support or against it?
That's a really good question. For anyone who didn't hear, the question was, are there any reefs outside of West Hawaii that have similar or different relationships to coral urchin dynamics? So yes, actually, in most places in the world, urchins are known to help coral because of that whole algae relationship, especially in the Caribbean. One of the species that I actually looked at, the long-spine urchins, there was a die-off of them and it killed almost all the coral because the urchins died. So in general, that's what we found, which is why that one paper was so interesting to me, because it said the complete opposite. Awesome, thank you so much.